woman who had this puppy named Poopsie. And that's exactly what they did. She's going, Poopsie, Poopsie, Poopsie. And they're just laughing their heads off while they're lowering her little dog into the grave, and they never got past it. And he just loves to tell that story. And he loves to tell the story of how Teeter walked on water. At least that's what Roy would say, because they were out on the lake fishing, doing the brother thing, and they're fishing, and a storm comes up. And being good fishermen, they know you got to get to shore. I mean, the storm's coming up. So they almost get to shore, and Teeter jumps out. He grabs the line to pull it up and tie it off, and a big bolt of lightning, bam, right behind the boat, electrifies the whole water, and Teeter's head gets, and he said, I swear he walked on water to get off the shore. I mean, he was out of that water just like that. And he loved to embellish and make that story even bigger than it was. And Lori, I understand there is a story that years ago, you got to go back almost to the beginning of time in your family tree, when you and your mom, I think, were at this old house out in the middle of nowhere that a lot of money, somebody heard a lot of money had been put into the house, and they thought there was actually money in the house. They didn't know it cost to build the house, and these burglars came to get the money in the house, and you held them off, you and your mom, with a paring knife. Is that true? Roy had to have a shotgun. You had a paring knife. He had the shotgun. And he just loved. I mean, so many stories that if he was here that he would say about his family. Roy was all about the story. You're going to hear many about him before our time is concluded. He was born in Midland, Texas, but he was raised in Haltom City, where he would not only graduate from high school in 1971, he graduated as an all-state basketball player. I mean, all-state. I mean, we're not talking just average. We're talking all-state. I mean, the boy could shoot, couldn't dribble worth beans. Ball would get to him. He'd say, Roy, pass, dribble, or shoot. Don't pass. Don't dribble. Either pass it or shoot it. But he was accomplished. He even got a scholarship to McClendon Junior College, where he played for 1 year, and then he's drafted. Some of you, our peers, remember that Vietnam War at the very end, those last draft numbers that were coming out, and he got a pretty low number. And so he winds up going into the Navy. And is this the truth? Roy Carlson was on a submarine. Aircraft carrier. I'm getting ready to say, if he was on a submarine, we need to talk to somebody in authority. You know, there's no way he could fit on a submarine. But for 2 years, he served in the military, and he was discharged after 2 years with honors, and he's out into life. And it's not too long after that, he meets a young lady named Kathy, and they fall in love, and they would have 2 kids. And those children would be Daniel and Melissa. And that became, just say this right now, that was a kind of a hard time. The great thing was the birth of these 2 wonderful kids that he loved so much. But that began the beginning of a time for Roy of just kind of having this, hey, we all have them, of a demon, of a gorilla that was introduced into his life that just hounded him. But he said, you know what? My kids aren't going to be this way for the rest of their life. And I'm going to get them out of that situation. And he did. And instead of walking away from his family, he took his 2 kids and said, come on, let's go get well. And that's what he did. And he worked on that. I mean, it was a part of his life passion for your sake. And then there came a time not too long later that a friend, I guess, of Renee, some of y'all know Renee, Bob Lauterbach, he said, listen, I got this guy that I want to introduce you to. He's my friend, but you he's good, but don't date him. So she married him. She married him. And they would have a son, and his name is Brett. And Brett would marry Mel. And then there would be 3 grandkids. You got Jaden, who was the first, who got to name him Potts, right? You had the first right of naming rights. And so you named him Potts, and you did that. And then you have Brooklyn and Knox. And many nieces and nephews, I know. Many nieces. I can mention so many. And he was a great uncle. And he was a great Potts. He was. When we were visiting the other day in my office with Brett and Mel and Melissa, all the stories as they talked, and their face glowed as they talked about their dad. He was a good, good father. He was a good, good dad. He loved his kids. And they talked about how patient he was with them. Hey, dads, you want to take a lesson in parenting? All dads on Father's Day weekend, he was so patient. They would mess up. They were expecting the hammer to come, expecting the cloud up and rain all over them. It's not what happened. Let's talk about it. I understand, been there. Let's talk about it. He was very calm under pressure with his kids. They talked about everybody who met Roy, they met Roy. You didn't meet somebody else. You met Roy. When you left, you knew Roy. He's not going to play games. He's not going to hide. Who he was is who he was. They talked how fair he was as a dad, how fair he was. To the point he couldn't make decisions about who to give what, so he made them draw toothpicks so he would not have to own the responsibility. And whoever drew so he put it upon them because he did not want to be not fair. And at Christmas, down to the very penny, he would measure the gift to make sure each got the equal amount, so they thought that they were all loved in the same way. And many of you know he was a man of integrity. He was honest. He was funny to a fault, even when he didn't try to be. He was just funny. And his brothers, there was a bond, wasn't there, guys? Brothers. Business, golf, fishing, Brazil, Canada, Mexico, Texas, you name it. In business, respected. Some of you know the story. Mike Carlson Motor Company, MCNC, started with a loan of $500, 5 cars, bought them each for $100, sold them each for $250, $10 a month, $10 a week payment. And one day their dad dies. And somebody had to step up. And Roy stepped up. He felt the responsibility to take care of everybody, to take care of the family in that way. And he did. He started off as a car wash boy in 1975 and became president in 1989. He was a member of TIADA, NIADA, the Dealer 20. He loved to fish. He loved to golf. He loved his grandkids. He loved to put you on that tractor, Jaden, and drive y'all all the way around Brooklyn and Knox. Oh, how he loved to show off the tank and the fish and all that sort of stuff to y'all. He loved y'all coming out and hanging and doing all that sort of stuff. He loved to travel. He loved to eat. That boy could eat. And never gained a whole lot of weight. You women just hate him for that, don't you? I mean, he could just eat and eat and eat and eat and eat. And he loved his family. And he loved his MC family. He loved his work. He loved it. So we're going to stop and talk about his work and his family. And who's coming up first here? Oh, yeah, Jeff Martin. Jeff, come on up here. Where's Jeff? I know Jeff is here. Came in from out of town. I know Roy kind of mentored you at a time with TIADA. Am I saying that right? Okay, why don't you kind of share a little bit about Roy professionally and your friendship with him. So get it.
For your words so far. Let me start by saying on behalf of the National Independent Automobile Dealers Association and the Texas Independent Automobile Dealers Association and all of our local chapters, we bring our condolences to the family. Thank you guys for letting us be here. Roy was a big part of the association. I actually met Roy about 13 years ago. But I don't know that I could say that I met him. I started to hear about Roy 13 years ago because I was hired to work for TIEDA, and the board got together and decided to hire me, and I actually was not at that board meeting where I would have normally met Roy. That was in July, and our next board meeting wasn't going to be until October, but between July and October, I decided I was going to go around and try to meet with every board member that was a part of TIEDA. And so I started calling them. I was crisscrossing the state, visiting all these guys, and every time I would visit with a past president, or I'd visit with a officer, or I'd visit with somebody from the auto auction, somebody want to get that? Or I would visit with someone, one of our vendors, they would always say, have you met Roy Carlson yet? Have you met Roy Carlson? I said, no, I'm trying to. We keep calling each other. We keep missing each other. This was, a little bit before email, and every time I would try to get in touch with Roy, he was either off to a 20 group, or he was doing this really crazy thing I had never heard of, but he would let dealers from other states or dealers from Texas actually come to his dealership so he could show them what he was doing. He would let his competitors come to the dealership. And so he would say, man, you can come by, but I've got somebody that's going to be here Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. So we never could make it work out. Eventually, I ended up seeing him at our next board meeting in October, and it was actually a convention. And for those of you who've been to conventions, you know how those go. You don't have a lot of time. I did get a chance to visit with Roy briefly, and he said, I got to get you on the schedule. He was a big planner. I got to get it in the planner. I got to get it in the planner. So we got it in the planner. I said, I'm going to come up and visit with you in November. He said, I'm either going to come to Austin or you come up to Burleson. And so we had the date, and I had heard all these stories about Roy Carlson. He loves the association. Loves the association, loves people, loves to visit, got to go visit with him. Also knows everything about the auto industry. I'd spent 12 years representing teachers. I knew absolutely nothing about the auto industry. So when I left Austin, I was driving up here to Burleson. I was thinking about what could we talk about. I had no idea. I'd heard these terms like curbstoning. I had heard terms about buy here, pay here, collections, but I didn't know what any of that meant. So I finally get here, and we had about an hour and a half or 2 hours to visit, and that's how much we talked about the car business. Because that's just not who Roy was. Roy talked to me about, he said, if I remember correctly, you told me you had 2 kids when I saw you down in San Antonio in October. Is that right? I said, yeah, that's right. He said, 2 girls. What are their names, and what are their ages? That's important to me. I want to know that. Tell me about your wife. Tell me about your job you had before you came to TIEDA. Tell me about the teachers. Man, that's a tough gig. Those teachers got a tough gig, don't they? I said, yeah. And then he told me about his family. And as you mentioned earlier, he tells you everything about his family when he tells you about his family. And we talked about the association a little bit. And MCMC had just been through an evaluation of personalities. And everybody had a color. And he wanted to tell me all about the evaluation of personalities and what color he was. And he wanted to evaluate my personality so he would know what color I would be so that we could communicate better later. I didn't have any idea what this color thing meant, but he was passionate about it, and he wanted to know what color I was because that would help him later in life when we communicated together, and that was really going to be important to him. And then, of course, we talked a lot about golf and fishing. And so at the end, I remembered thinking all of these things everybody had told me about Roy Carlson, it was close to right. But, it's like when you go out and you take that picture of a really beautiful place and you come back and you show somebody the picture and it just doesn't do it justice. You got to meet the person. And he said, I'll do anything for you. Just give me a call. I'll do anything for the association. And over the next 13 years, he proved that time and time again. And I'm going to share 2 stories with you that are certainly very near and dear to my heart, and to give you an idea of how much the association meant to Roy, and I think a little bit about his personality, which a lot of you already know. So we were at we were at our conference in Fort Worth, and I'll say prior to that, at our association, we used to have a thing called the hospitality suite. And the hospitality suite was essentially the association would rent a suite, and we would have free drinks in there. After a long day at the conference, anybody could go up there and have free drinks. And for various reasons, I decided we needed to get rid of that, and I needed to have some support from some people on the board to get rid of it. I said, don't worry, we're going to replace it with something even better. So we eliminated the hospitality suite, and there was certainly some grumbling from some board members that we were not going to have the free drinks anymore. The next time that we really talked to the board about it was here in Fort Worth when we had our next conference. And I had mentioned to him that we were eliminating the hospitality suite, but I failed to mention to him that we were replacing it with something, and the thing we were going to be replacing it with was a hypnotist that was a comedian too. And the board looked at me kind of funny, and they said, I don't know about this hypnotist thing. Well, this was on Sunday afternoon, and the hypnotist was coming on Monday. We didn't really have a chance to cancel the hypnotist at this point. But I could get the feel from the board that this wasn't their idea of replacing the hospitality suite. So anyway, when the board meeting was over, I was standing in the hallway, and Roy does that thing. You know how when Roy will come out and he'll put his hand up, well, for my size anyway, he put his hand on your shoulder, you know, and he kind of gives you that smile, and he says, well, is there anything I can help you with? And I said, yeah. I need you to be at that event on Monday night. I need Roy Carlson to be there. That carried a lot of weight with our association. I said, not only that, I need you to tell people that you're going to the event, because that'll bring more people. They're going to want to know that